Hello, you're listening to Lists and Other Things That No One Asked For with Jesse Barbin, your weekly mini podcast where stuff usually takes the form of a list about pop culture, music, growing up. So, I hope you like it. This week, I'll just keep on talking about TV because this is the internet and it is not a crime to be ignorant on a subject but still talk a lot about it. SNL with Ariana Grande was just alright. She joked about not singing, but then she sang in nearly every sketch. I think she didn't want to be shown up by Stevie Nicks, but come on, it's Stevie Nicks. I give the whole episode an unqualified meh. NCIS Origins. I watched this with my wife, and while I had never seen an episode of NCIS before, I was under the impression that it was a light crime procedural for old people, and either I was mistaken about that or those rules don't apply in a prequel. It felt overly dark, and it was kind of a bummer. And my wife was not into it. I don't know when it became de rigueur. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. De rigueur for everyone on television to have a strategic backstory. Or maybe everyone already knew about Gibbs' tragic history. Also, I thought this show would deal more in archetype characters like grumpy police chief or maverick detective or quirky pathologist. Instead, this show has Vince Gilligan-esque morally gray characters like Gibbs' boss, who has a soft spot for Gibbs but is also a raging misogynist. The closest thing to a quirky pathologist is Bobby Moynihan as the quirky lab technician, lab supervisor. I'm not 100% sure. I love to see Bobby Moynihan crop up, and he was the only comic relief in this relentlessly bummer show. The few jokes almost felt out of place due to the overall cheerlessness of the whole episode, which is the fault of the writers, not my guy Bobby Moynihan. He was one of my favorite SNL peeps, and I worry about them when they leave SNL, but he seems to keep landing on his feet. Mr. Mayor got canceled after a hot second, but he's here and also in a bunch of other voice roles I hear on my kids' shows, so I'm hoping Bobby Moynihan is doing okay. Matlock. Kathy Bates plays this like a sassy Miss Marple in the first 40 minutes for a courtroom drama that is fine. But then there's a twist ending that I won't spoil here that legitimately surprised me. I also watched this with my wife and she was into it, especially after the big reveal at the end. My question from earlier applies here. Must everyone have a tragic backstory? Must they? I also thought this show was supposed to be a light procedural for old people, but maybe old people just need more angst nowadays. Only Murders in the Building. This week's episode felt like it was just treading water and a lot of telling and not showing. High Potential was good per usual. It was a kids in peril plot, which I do not care for, but it was done well. The guy who plays Detective Karadek is getting better at acting, but I also think they're trying to do a will they won't they thing between him and the main protagonist, and I hate it. Abbott Elementary was excellent this week, as funny as ever. I keep saying this, but they have to balance out the romance so that the comedy doesn't get lost in the shuffle, and that was done perfectly this week, so I have no complaints. Coming soon, all this good TV is going to run out soon, but there are a couple bangers coming up. There's Lopez versus Lopez, which is comedian George Lopez with his daughter Mayan, which comes out on October 18th. And then there's the animated series Star Trek Lower Decks, which also comes out October 24th. Thank you for listening. This has been Lists and Other Things That No One Asked For by Jesse Barbin. If you want to hang out with me, I'm at Jesse Barbin on all the things. Hope you have a good week.